Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So, the conclusion to the first crossover trilogy, Unseen, Long Way Home, a Buffy and Angel crossover tie-in novel. So, you see, there's Buffy on the left, or to the right, if you're going to be one of those people who insists on it being the right of the object you're looking at, which I never understand, and there's Angel on the other side, and in between them at the back is Spike. Now, I'm going to just start by saying Spike in this book, or rather in the last few pages of this book, is exactly why tie-in novels are just kind of problematic in terms of the licensing. Because if you're a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or of Angel the series, or of both, the thing is that you know what happened to Spike, and you know where Spike went, and you know what Spike did, and you know what happened to Spike by the end of the series. And the thing about this book is that this one is set between seasons 4 and 5. Very specifically. It's set at a particular moment in time in the series, and you have certain expectations of where everybody is and what they're doing. And we know where Spike was in season 5, we know where he was in season 6 and 7, and we know where he wound up in the final seasons of Angel. That's just a thing. So here's my issue. At the very end of this book, Nancy Holder and Jeff Mariotte here have effectively implied that Spike has gone missing and has, in effect, somehow changed his own past. That there's sort of this moment at the end of the book where Spike is literally thinking that it literally realizes that somehow he is human again. He's not Spike, not quite yet. He was still William, fleeing the scene of his humiliation with tears in his eyes and a pulse in his veins. And Spike went through a different portal than the others at the end. I can get to that. And in this particular variant, basically what it does is it means he winds up back in time with William, who, upon realizing what the future holds, flees, thus changing everything, at least in that particular alternate future timeline. It's a very odd thing, because Spike didn't wind up in some weird alternate timeline, and you can make an argument that maybe this had something to do with the season 6 Spike Ender thing with him getting his soul back, which I have issues with how people look at it, that thing, but that's another issue because that's about the TV show. And if somebody really wants to ask me about it, they can get an earful, but I'm not sure you want an earful from me on it, because if we disagree, that will just be bad blood all over the internet, which there's frankly enough of that. But the thing is that this illustrates the issue with tie-in novels. They're official, they're licensed. Somebody involved with the show's production, one of the producers, but probably not one of the show's writers, signs off on it and says, yeah, sure, go ahead, write a novel in character for these characters. But it doesn't actually fit into continuity. It actually conflicts with continuity. And all of this stuff in these books about working with the Guardian, Nancy Holder wrote a book involving the Guardian who guards pathways of the dead and all of that. She started her own continuity, her own sub-continuity. And I find it perplexing from the perspective of a showrunner to have all of these officially licensed books floating around that don't actually fit in your continuity. Because there's a part of me that thinks, really, a licensed novel, if it's going to be licensed, shouldn't it fit? Shouldn't the people who have been licensed to do this be sent not only a copy of the book, but be sent all of the directives that the showrunner is going to be doing, and to have to send back any particular plot or character points that may long-term affect the series? Just, this should kind of, I just, it weirds me out to say this is officially licensed, but we're just going to pretend that the official continuity doesn't matter. The only place where this has ever worked out properly is in the Star Wars extended universe, which, before Disney purchased it and started their onward march with Rey and what's his noodle who pitches the hissy fits and Emperor and the Emperor with the weird name. You'll notice how much of a Star Wars fan I am. The thing is that despite putting that aside, up until that happened, the Star Wars extended universe was relatively consistent and coherent, but that was because it wasn't having to worry about conflicting with the pre-existing books. It could just continue onward and just remain, sort of connected to the realities as described in the, prequel movies, in effect. And by prequel movies, I mean the 6 movies that acted as prequels to the book, or just to the 3 to the original trilogy acting as prequels to the book series, however you want to see it. Neither here nor there. I find that last thing, it sets off all of those mental tics I have about series, especially series like Buffy and Angel, which are some of the earlier series that have long-term plot arcs where it actually genuinely matters what happens from one thing to the next. So, moving on from that, what happens here? Well, Buffy and Angel step through a portal, and Spike decides, what the heck, I'm going to go through too, because I'm looking for somewhere I can kill stuff and have fun. And Spike stepping through basically ruins everything, because the spell was particularly set for sending Buffy and Angel through, and sending a third person through upset everything. Because nobody was prepared for it. So a large portion of this book is Buffy and Angel separate, trying to figure out where they are and what's going on and what they're going to do, and finding and trying to just figure out how to find the missing kids now that they have lost contact with Alina, the not exactly Soviet Russian girl, and Willow and Doña Pilar and Tara, who are all sort of working together or were supposed to be working together to maintain this contact and let them find stuff. So we follow them, and we follow Spike through this, and the thing about Spike's story is fundamentally not really important. It's a side plot line which doesn't really do much of anything for the story. Frankly, it could have been disposed of. And I don't know if it's that Nancy Holder was setting him up because she wanted to do something with her particular continuity, or Jeff Marriott was setting him up for that. But I enjoy Spike. I enjoy Spike's character in the other 2 books, but I do not enjoy him in this because he's not in a place to do what he does best, which is snark, and his plotline really, really just doesn't have much of a point. Buffy and Angel eventually find each other and then eventually track down the kids, they break Faith out of prison and have to put her back in at the end because Faith has to be back in prison in time for her to be broken out for the end of season 7. Although, admittedly, I believe this was published before season 7. So, yeah, 2001 was before season 7. The point is that Buffy and Angel, that Faith had to be back in prison, and stuff. But like I said, it doesn't fit into continuity, so it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, so you have Faith coming back, and I'm a little. This is really, I feel, the weakest book of the series in terms of the characters, in terms of a whole bunch of things, because Nikki's death feels particularly pointless, which admittedly is a very Angel sort of thing to do, to have somebody get their redemption and figure it out and start on the path and then get killed before anything they can actually go through with it. And I'm not really a fan of doing things that sort of feel pointless. I mean, there are arguable reasons you can do it, but this didn't feel like it was doing any of those things, any of those kinds of things that would make a pointless death have a sort of a literary point. I felt that I enjoyed it because I'm a Buffy fan. And so, spending more time with these characters that I love, spending more time listening to Anya make outre comments about Giles's sex life is something I always enjoy. Giles's ongoing permanent migraine caused by these Americans that he's forced to constantly deal with is something that I enjoy. I enjoyed the Xander and Anya back and forth. Cordelia is always fun, and I like Buffy and I like Faith, but there are a lot of things in this book that kind of hit notes that aren't my favorite. But I really have to get off of that. So what did I like? Well, like I said, I like spending time with these characters. And that's really the big thing about tie-in novels, if they're well written, is even if you don't love the story, even if you don't love bits and pieces of the book, what's really, really great for fans of a show is that you get to spend more time in that show. You have to be careful. I like Nancy Holder as a tie-in novel author. I will be honest with you all, I am less enthused about Jeff Mariotte. So, Nancy Holder's kind of, I suspect, mitigating the things about a Jeff Mariotte book that I don't like. I wonder how he pronounces that, because, it could be Mariotte. I don't know. I did enjoy the Salma story because she got kidnapped in the second book, sucked into an alternate universe, and there's a very good story about her surviving, basically. She's dropped into a maze with a giant worm monster, and it's a really, really nice, not a helpless maiden trope, that she is working her butt off to figure out how to get out and how to survive and how to get through, and thinks constantly and thinks on her feet, and that even when she's panicking and flailing and running away, she's thinking, and it's a really, really great character. I really, really enjoy that. I enjoyed Faith's story in prison. I'm a little less enthused about her interactions with Buffy in this, just because I feel the Buffy interactions were a little problematic, because I think Faith realized she had done Buffy wrong and would have been a little bit more regretful than she was in this. Would have been at all regretful. But, it's Buffy. So, it's great and it's fun. And And, you know, Buffy. I love Buffy. And I'll see you all next week.